These are large, complex systems. If I ever hear an anarcho-capitalist bring up an example of Bill and Bob trading apples for fish, I think I'm going to have an aneurysm. That's what Buddha said, or something to that effect. Buddha does not like breaking things down into smaller units and then building up analytically. Instead, he reasons holistically, taking in the big picture and feeling his way to conclusions. Imagine Buddha's critique of a car mechanic. If I hear a mechanic bring up compression strokes again, I think I'm going to have an aneurysm. These are large, complex systems that can't be explained with fuel and air intakes and phases of a piston stroke. All of these silly theoretical and reductionistic diagrams can show an image. They can't explain how it moves. Obviously, Buddha wouldn't say that, but when we apply his holistic thinking to subjects where there is a clear and mostly agreed upon consensus, we see just how inadequate holistic thinking is for these topics. I always noticed a striking dichotomy in the way people think, and I used to describe this as left and right. That is, leftists thought in block thinking and rightists thought more analytically. But as I came into contact with people like I like Newman on the left and Arendt and Exomniverse on the right, I began to realize that this isn't a left and right thing. This is a dichotomy between analytic and holistic thinkers. There's a little bit of correlation, but it's mainly analytic and holistic thinking per se. That's the issue. Or a conflict between analysis and holosis, or holosis, which is a word I made up. It may also be a real word, like in dictionaries, but if not, just know that I made it up to mean holistic thought. I'm not claiming I'm the first to have made it up, but I made it up independently. In order to define a word, you have to reduce it to what makes up the word. And that's why the charge of reductionism and playing word games go hand in hand. Spock and I will try to get people to define the word, but even the process of definition requires breaking down what they believe into meaningful parts. And I've had entire debates that centered around getting people to define things. At first I was like, dude, just define these terms so we can begin the debate. But I now realize that that was the debate. And if the terms were clearly and concisely defined, their position would be revealed as folly. Hardcore holicists or holicists hate this analysis and attempt to demonize it with terms like scientism and reductionism and say that we're playing word games. What is holistic thinking good for? Well, from the various journal abstracts, Wikipedia pages, and personal web pages, it seems like holistic thinking is good for art and music and for instant processing. That is, you engage in a holosis when you immediately enter a room and everyone stares at you. An analysis of the situation would take too long. And when you do an analysis, you might come to different conclusions than your first impression, or holosis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct or not. I think holistic thinking also leads to depression. The more to the holistic side you are, the less likely you are to support free markets. And this may be why I find objectivists so bizarre. They're holistic thinkers who support a free market. Ayn Rand wrote novels, after all, not strictly analytic tomes like Mises or Rothbard did. She wrote fiction with a political message, but it was fiction. Also, holistic thinkers tend to have more spiritual experiences, and so tend to be more spiritual than analytic thinkers. Analytic thinkers, though, may actually be more religious, and let me explain that. Obviously, analytic thinkers don't analyze the existence of God. They take that on faith, or religious ones do. But beyond that point, they take a highly analytic approach to the Bible, which is presupposed true. And when they do that, you can see it says gays go to hell, adulterers should be punished, and lots of other bad things that others have gone over at length. If you presuppose the Bible is true, then an analytic thinker will probably become a fundamentalist. A holistic thinker will say things like, well, that's not what God means to me. My personal relationship with God is different, and nonsense about personal relationships with God, right? In all these liberal churches. And so you have the dichotomy of analytic and holistic churches, or which is sometimes called conservative and liberal churches. Of course, I was a fundamentalist. So this holistic and analysis, this draws sharp battle lines in morality. And I used to find it so odd that objectivists, social democrats, and anarchists, and by anarchists I mean libertarian socialists, these people who are normally at each other's throats could unite against the nihilists. But now it's very clear, because it's really holistic versus analysis. That is another thing about holistic thinking that is very odd, is how they can get along with people of other positions so easily. And if we go back to the mechanic analogy, we can see why analytic thinkers require more agreement. Like if you remove one part of the engine, it all falls apart. Now you can advocate different engines. You may need a diesel engine for different things and a gasoline engine for other things. But quite frankly, some will work and some won't. And holistic thinking has no place in car engines. And given how complex societies are, and how we have a great deal of time to analyze them, piece by piece is the correct way to do it. You can value different types of engines more than others, and that's fine, but the idea of a state is utterly utopian. Moral facts do not exist, and you don't have free will. If you value collectivism, like that's just what you value, you can value a kibbutz or recovered factory arrangement, right? Different kind of engine. But if you want an engine to run, you have to have the product of labor connected to the reward gained from production. And because we're not God and everyone wants different things, this means some kind of free market, right? Free market socialism, whatever. Go knock yourself out. That engine will run, right? It's proven to run. There are examples of free market socialism that I would broadly call it, and it works. It's just not for me. So I can get along with some free market socialists, but just be sure to emphasize the free market part. At one point, I was drifting that way toward this, free market socialism thing, but I was attacked so hard by the anarchists, led by Brain Police, who claimed, and as far as I know, still claims that I was using anarchism as a vehicle to advance white nationalism. Hasn't really pushed that claim forward anymore, but he has never retracted, never said he was wrong or anything like that. I've gotten a few PMs from people who read my book who said that my ideas are not that far from mutualism, which is probably true. Mutualism, I don't want to go into what that is, but they're probably true. But I will never associate with mutualists. I hate them on a personal level because they either are Brain Police fanboys or they fell for Brain Police's bullshit back when BP was bigger than me. Right? So they can all croak. Though I'd probably call myself a mutualist and emphasize the more leftist aspects of my philosophy if not for Brain Police. But enough melodrama. Holistic thinking has no place in political economy or even general philosophy. Reduce, break down, define, analyze, and build your system.